All right, my friends, thank you for joining me again. I don't know what episode this is. I can't ever remember. Maybe one of these days I'll count them, but it's been going on and on and on. Today, this Wednesday, I've got a good friend of mine, Craig Stampfli. And I say a good friend, but it's been virtual, our entire relationship. And he's in Australia. And, I'm, of course, in Southern California. But I met him virtually through the Twit Pro network with Frederick and Johnson and the rest of our friends. And today we're going to talk about Craig's car photography. So through the time that we spent in the TWIP community and some of the images that he shared, he has these amazing images of cars going really fast down the street with his cameras hanging off the side. At least that's what it looks like, right? Welcome, Craig. Give us a little bit of introduction of who you are and what you've been doing lately.
No worries. Morning, Troy. Craig Stampfli, based in Brisbane, Australia, which is Southern Hemisphere on the East Coast. And it's Thursday morning for me. So your Wednesday, my Thursday. So just to mess things up. By day, I'm typically a commercial photographer. So a lot of architecture and real estate stuff, things like that. Occasionally headshots. The odd wedding. I don't normally advertise for wedding. I leave it for people like you who enjoy weddings. But I will do them. They're good fun. And then, yeah, as you said, the car photography stuff, that's just for a bit of fun. I get a little bit of enjoyment out of it and get to create something that's a little bit different than the normal stuff that people make.
Right.
At least I'd like to think so.
Now, you had some experience with cars racing, right? Did you do rally or something?
I used to do a lot of rallying. I used to be the co-driver, so the idiot strapped in the passenger seat, reading out the notes at breakneck speeds. And over the years, I've had quite a bit of success, a lot of class wins and things like that in some of the events I've competed in. I've also had a few big crashes that have destroyed cars. But I've enjoyed the rallying side, and I'd like to get back into it one day. Maybe one day, maybe doing a little bit of the driving. But
yeah, I used to do a lot of off-road racing, and I used to own a speed shop, and we used to sponsor the trucks, and we would go out and we were in the chase crew. And I have no problem going fast as long as I'm in control of the trajectory of the vehicle.
Yeah.
I got to ride in the race truck, and that was one of the scariest rides I've ever been in. It wasn't even at race speeds, right? It was
fair enough.
We were tuning the engine. And I can't imagine being in a rally car, which is even way crazier. And you're just shouting out directions because how often do you get to look up, right? Are you just looking at the notes all the time?
Sometimes you're just looking at the notes, feeling the corners, trying to read the notes and judge the corners based on how you're getting moved about. But you do get a chance to sort of quickly pop your head up, have a look, make sure that it's the right corner coming up to what you've just told the driver. But, if you've got a series of corners coming up quickly, you tend to have to sort of keep your head down and just make sure that you're reading out things correctly that he can understand.
Yeah.
And, it's good fun. It really is a good fun. I actually do enjoy the co-driving side. I don't think it's for everybody, but I really, really did enjoy it.
Yeah, that would be fun. I would love to photograph it while you're driving by. I think that would be great.
Fair enough. And I was going to say, that's where sort of a bit of the camera gear that I've got now, some of the mounts and things, that's where it sort of came from, was strapping cameras, little video cameras to the inside of the car so that I could actually see what the stages look like at speed. Because most of the time you're looking down and you never get to see anything.
So like this car right here, this Porsche.
Not quite. So that's a nice, expensive, heavy DSLR. I'm talking more little lipstick microphones or eventually to GoPros when we got to that stage.
But that was the gateway drug, right?
That was a gateway drug for sure. Yeah. I mean, once you get to see and hear yourself at speed, particularly when you go back, and we used to have the little co-driver's computer, little monitor that I would run. I'd be able to record the top speed that we would do for each stage, and quite often I'd note down our top speeds, because if we were repeating the stage, you want to see that you're going both quicker and faster.
Right.
And I still, look back on some of the videos, and not that I have any hair on my head, but the hair on the back of my neck goes up on one particular stage because we hit just over 230 kilometers an hour, which is about 140 miles an hour, I think, on a little road lined with trees. And it's, I think it's impressive. It was definitely scary at the time, but you get a huge buzz out of it.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of drag racing too. We used to have a couple cars that did drag racing.
Hmm.
Just always tease the guy, like, it's really easy to go straight on flat pavement.
Correct.
Do 110 across 3 foot deep whoops.
Yep.
That if you
Yep.
slow down, you're not going to come out of it, right? Like, you got
Yep.
to be on the gas all the way
You've got
through.
to be committed.
Those
Yep.
kind of scary things, yeah, yeah. Even desert race, not just desert racing, but playing in the desert was those kind of things. Like, you would hit stuff on your bike, and you're like, "Oh shit, I'm in the middle of the whoops.
Yep.
I can't slow down. I hope my hands don't cramp."
I I had the very good fortune of a few years ago. I did a wedding in France, and as part of the trip, I went over to Germany and I drove the Nürburgring, this famous racetrack.
Amazing.
It's amazing. It's very scary, and with my laps, I organised an instructor to go with me around it for at least the first lap. And there's points of the track where you can't really see where you're going, and I'm slowing down, and he's saying, "No, no, off the brakes, accelerate," because if I slow down too much, I'll upset the car, and
Yeah, and you'll lose
I'm
track.
slowing down. And it's
Yeah.
like, "No, no, faster, faster, don't brake, don't brake," and no, I need to brake because I don't know where I'm going. So
Oh my
certainly
god.
got faster as I repeated the track, but that first time out, it's very scary.
I bet. I bet. Well, let's dive into
Mm,
some of your work here. So what you're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the equipment that it takes to do what you
sure.
have here, and then you're going to do a little bit of editing for us as
Yeah, I
well.
can. I've got one of the files up that I can have a quick play with and sort of. I think you've got some of the before and after shots, and we can sort of discuss sort of the settings, as it were,
Yep.
and then I can show you some of the bits and pieces that I have on my desk that might help make sense for people what I'm actually trying to do.
Perfect. Perfect. So for anybody that's in the chat that's new, that hasn't done this before, the chat is there for you guys to talk about yourselves. You can talk about me and Craig. You can talk about anybody you want. But just so you know, I do get a transcript of the chat. I'm just saying. I don't always read it, but just in case. Also, there is a Q&A tab. So feel free to put your questions in there. That helps me sort out the questions versus just the chatter. Sometimes in the chat window, I might miss a question, and I don't want to do that. And I'll try to ask those as we go if it's pertinent. Otherwise, we can nail those at the end. And you guys are welcome to just ask as we go along. So, and as a lot of you know, and I've talked to Craig, we don't really have we have a rough outline. We have a rough direction. So feel free to just interject at any time. So first of all, Craig, one of these images that you have in here, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up
Mhm.
the screen share, and I'm going to show you. So how fast are we going here?
We are going less than walking pace.
Really?
What you can't see is I'm actually behind the car, leaning on it, pushing on it, just making it move along very, very slowly. The driver wasn't even in the car; he was helping push in this particular shot.
All right.
Yeah.
So the tires look like they're spinning, the trees
Hmm.
look like they're flying by. Is that post, or is that in camera?
No, that's in camera. So with this one, I think the next photo might show the full raw image, and that'll explain some of the settings. So we've got that second photo,
Oh, the second photo. Okay.
the
Oh,
second one down.
here we go.
So this is as taken out of the camera. So this was an aperture of f5.6 for 5 seconds. So this is
Right.
essentially long exposure photography. And typically with long
Stop.
exposure photography, we are doing, we're mounting a camera on a tripod and we're doing our best not to touch it so we don't bump it. In this case, we're strapping it onto a car and pushing a car. And
Right.
just
No,
that sensation of speed is derived from the 5 seconds that the shutter's open.
yeah, and this is a great example of understanding, one, how your equipment works,
Yep.
and just the principles of photography, right? Like,
Mhm.
sometimes you might hear somebody talk about dragging the shutter,
Yep.
or doing long exposures for landscapes, and then all of a sudden here you have a car shot, and you're like, how do I create motion? How do we create wispy clouds or whatever? You're basically doing the same thing. Instead of the clouds moving or the world moving past you, you're moving on the world,
Correct.
moving the car. So
Yeah.
the 10 stop ND filter, I'm assuming, is that so that you can get your shutter speed down to the 5-second mark.
Correct. Yeah. So this shot was taken summer here in Brisbane, early in the morning. It was probably about 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun's up quite early. We'd done some other shots just before the sun came up, And then we got into these rolling shots. I'd found this location with the arrow. I wanted to make the arrow part of the image, and just lined up the car, strapped on the camera, and made it hopefully work.
So this is the rig. Now, I'm
Correct.
guessing, having a little insight, this is your old rig?
This is my So this is my first little rig that I sort of cobbled together. That's the actual post itself for the pole is about 1 meter long, so about 3 feet long. It's got threaded ends on the end, and I just screwed on a tripod and hung the camera upside down because I wanted to get that particular side.
Right. And I noticed you've got 3 suction cups on the window. I'm assuming that that's the critical anchor point, right? Because that's
Correct.
fulcrum is the other suction cup.
That's correct.
It would tilt otherwise.
Yeah.
So when I first saw this, and maybe that's the cool thing about this, when I think you showed this in TWIP, I'm like, what the heck? He's hanging his camera off that car
Yeah.
driving down the road. And even though I know better now, looking at that, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Perfect. Very good.
I had a shot on the other side where I actually had the driver in the photo, and you could see the instruments and the speedometer, and the speedo's essentially saying 0. And so in post, I actually moved the speedometer needle around, so it looked like he's actually going fast, because people are saying, the other comment is the person isn't wearing their seatbelt, or there's no speed, so what's going on? So you have to do a few little things in post like that just to keep everybody happy.
And some of those things you might not actually be conscious of, but your subconscious is going to pick up on little things, right? Like if there isn't the proper amount of blur, or maybe the speedometer, right? Your subconscious is going to be like, I don't know about this image. I could just see that in a car ad, right? Like some Ferrari car ad, and the car is driving down the freeway and it's 3 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, we had a famous one here in Australia. It was a phase 2 or phase 3 Falcon back in the early 70s. And it made the front cover of the newspaper or the magazine, and the speedo was right off the off the gauge type thing. It was showing extreme speeds, and they actually had to edit it out and actually move it so it was actually going slower, because the car was going so fast that it sent the wrong message. So there's a famous one. I'll have to find the article and send it to you.
That's interesting.
It was very, very cool.
Yeah, because people are going to go out and go, well, the car will do 220, so I should go 220. I can do that. So tell me a little bit about your gear. We've got some photos that we'll get into, and you can kind of point out your gear. But just, if somebody wants to go out and do this, and Peter asked if this type of system would work on a motorcycle. So let's just talk a little bit about your gear. I know you have some stuff there that you can show us as well.
Okay. Well, talking about the camera, so those ones you saw, they were taken with a Canon full frame wide angle lens. What's quite important is having a way of slowing down the light. So a 10-stop filter or a 6-stop. A circular polarizing filter is very handy as well to sort of help deal with shadows and glare, things like that. And I can show you what I use now. I've just changed to a little Olympus camera. It's got some very good inbuilt image stabilization. So I'm hoping to be able to really get some very smooth and sharp photos that way.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the camera gear, because I know that you got that Olympus. Was that something that you got specifically to do these kind of shots? Because the least amount of weight that you're going to have at the end of that pole, even though you're pushing it, right? I would imagine, and I'll just show this one image. I would imagine that you're going to get some kind of bounce in there, right?
There is, yeah. And so little things like the car's in neutral, the engine's off, because we don't need any sort of extra vibration. And then we're just slowly pushing the car. So that's still with the Canon, and that's showing the boom. I've got a telescopic carbon fiber boom that I had built purely for this sort of stuff. And then I'm using a traditional gimbal, but upside down, to hang the camera so I can orientate the camera the way I want.
So did you intentionally wear bright blue shoes to go with the red Mini? I mean, like,
I didn't. That was just what I chose on the day. It was a colorful day.
Does the sensor size, have you noticed whether the sensor size makes a difference in capturing motion at all?
Not really, because if anything, with the Olympus, I'm getting a sharper image to play with already. Whereas there's with the Canon, as smooth as the road is, and probably the mini shots are the best I've had so far because the road was exceptionally smooth, and we were just pushing it very, very slowly.
Right.
But I'm finding that with the Olympus, with the stabilization, it's just a lot sharper to deal with straight away. I'm not having to process it as much to clean it up.
Right.
I've
Yeah, I know
got a better image to play with.
Yeah, they've got great image stabilization,
Yep.
and a lot of the new the mirrorless, like the Z6 and Z7, the new Sony's mirrorless,
Mm-hmm.
the Panasonic, the Lumix, like the mirrorless image stabilization is absolutely phenomenal. And I used to think
Yep.
that my DSLR image stabilization was pretty solid. Doesn't even compare, you know.
No, I'm very impressed with, and this is the second generation EM5, so it's the Mark II. So it's a 4 or 5 year old camera.
Right.
I picked it up. It was still brand new in the box. They had a sale, and I grabbed it and a little wide angle lens. And yeah, I'm very, very impressed with it.
Right.
Because with Canon, typically their image stabilization's in the lens, but not all lenses are stabilized, particularly wide angle lenses that I'm using.
Right.
So no, it's a good little tool to have for the job.
So what's up? Show us some of the gear. What is that?
Okay.
Your new pole that you brought out.
All right, so I'll grab
I want one of those just because.
Okay, so I'm going to stand up. So I'm a little over 6 foot tall. I'm 6'3". So this is a telescopic carbon fiber pole. It's about a little over, probably close to 5 feet tall, collapsed. And it's 4 sections. It weighs, I don't know, 2 or 3 pounds. It's not very heavy. And this extends out to about 15 feet. So this allows me to mount the thick end with clamps and suction mounts onto the car, and then telescope it out, hang my camera, tension it up with a rope, with a cable, and then slowly take some photos. So,
wow. Now you said that was custom made, so you just chose the length and the tubing diameter to
correct. Yeah. So I contacted a few different manufacturers of these poles, and particularly for carbon fiber because its weight is quite rigid, and I like carbon fiber. And I got quotes anywhere from $2,000 to just under $400, and which is significance for me. And contacted the one company. I said, look, I want a end length of roughly 15 feet. That's a good working length. Happy with however many sections you give me. I don't really care. But the maximum tube diameter for the base tube needs to be 50 mil or just under 2 inches. And they sent me back some schematics and said, look, here's a drawing of what we can give you. It's about 15 foot long, 4 sections. Wow. Here's all the dimensions. And I just said, yeah, please send away. And it arrived in 2 weeks from China.
Yeah. If you have any of that information to share, we'll put that in the show notes afterwards. Because
no problems.
Those are the kind of things that when you go looking for, I'm sure you spent a significant amount of time, right? Looking for that kind of stuff. Those are the tricks. And
there are companies that actually make car boom kits or car rigs that you can buy off the shelf with a couple of suction mounts and some clamps and things like that. Mm-hmm. I just went down the track of making up my own system for a bit of fun, and I already had some of the parts. I already had suction mounts and clamps and things like that. I just needed a particular boom length, and just chose to source it myself rather than buy off the shelf.
And how much was that? You said 300?
It was 380 Australian delivered, so probably just over $200, $250 US.
That's an amazing price for that. So let's. I've got this picture up of the Red Mini and your rig there. So explain to us a little bit of what we see, because it looks like you've got like a guy wire to a piece.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here.
There is a lot of stuff, and this is typical for most systems. A lot of the ones you can buy off the shelf will have the guy wire, because that just helps take out a lot of the flex from the camera right at the end. You can help sort of tension up and support the boom, whether it's an aluminium boom or carbon fiber or whatever it happens to be. You're always going to have a bit of flex. So this helps remove some of that without adding a lot of weight. The camera itself, I'm using just an off-the-shelf gimbal. I'll show you that here. And normally we would traditionally run a gimbal and we would run it that way off your tripod. Now I'm sort of hanging it upside down, and I'm just sort of putting the camera on the base plate, and that gives me the option to be able to tilt it as I want, and I can also rotate it off the post.
Okay. Okay. I was wondering why you would do that because I'm thinking that's pretty heavy. That's another
It
heavy thing.
is. It is, but I actually tried supporting the camera off the hot shoe and hanging everything off the hot shoe, but there was just too much flex there. Not so much in the hot shoe itself, but the connections above. Whereas this gives me a nice, a rigid setup. And
Yeah.
I also triangulate it back up to the main boom. So it might have a bit of movement side to side, but front to back, it's rock solid.
So
So there's a little bit of weight there, but you're playing with what you can.
how much are you loading that? What percentage? So, obviously there's a max limit at the end of that boom, right? So do you know how much more weight you could put on it? Are you 50%?
Oh
100%?
no! I mean, it's a carbon fiber tube, so it's extremely strong.
Okay. So you're not
I mean,
too
it's
close.
probably dropping. Well, maybe when I add everything up, it's maybe right at the end, maybe coming down 6 inches or so, if that. But then I can take up a lot of that sag with the guy wire just by
Yeah.
tightening up on that, and it sort of gets it back to nearly level and just stops a lot of that bounce.
And are those suction cups anything special? Are those easy to
These
find?
are these are very relatively straightforward. These are by an American manufacturer called Woods Grip, and they're typically used for industrial stuff like moving glass and things like that. So you can, lift up big glass panels or whatever. I had a little 2.5-inch one that I used years ago to mount a camera onto a roof of a rally car, and actually sent Woods Grip a photo. They were quite interested when I contacted them to buy one.
Yeah.
And why did I need such a small one, and why did it need to go to Australia? And this is going back 10 or 11 years. And I said, yeah, I want to mount a camera onto a roof of a rally car. And the lady just said, look, once you've got that on there, I need a photo of that, please. And sent her a photo, and it was on their website for a little while.
Oh, that is amazing. That's cool.
Yeah, so these are very simple. I have, typically they come with a 1/4 thread
Right.
at the bottom. And it's just a suction mount. So you put it on the bodywork or on the window, and then you just squeeze the pump until the little red line disappears. And that's
So I was gonna ask you, how do you know when it's got good suction? So that
so
also helps
you
you.
keep on pumping, and then once you've evacuated all the air, it'll stay out. And that's your little telltale. If it starts to spring out and you start to see the red line,
Okay.
you need to give it a couple more pumps. But they're very, very, very good.
Because that's I can just imagine those things are starting to loosen up and you don't know, even though you're pushing the car.
Yep.
It's still, you still don't want to drop your gear. So
No, I haven't had one loosen up yet. No, they're very, very good.
now are these shots that you did for clients, or is this stuff that you did for you, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. So this is the ones with the Mini is a friend of mine, and he's seen my work, and he's when can we do something like that? And with this sort of shutdown period, as things sort of eased off a little bit in Australia, I sort of contacted him, said, look, let's go out while the streets are quiet and we can sort of hang out. Let me strap a carbon fiber boom to your car. And he's very, I don't want to say pressure. I mean, he loves his cars, and so they're always immaculate. And so yeah, we spent probably about an hour or so and took a few different angles, a few different shots.
So
And then he grabbed that one of me on the bottom and sent it to me afterwards. I didn't actually realize he took that.
That's such a great shot.
But it explains it all. It explains it all.
That is so much fun. And yeah, I was gonna say, like, here's the finished shot, right?
Yep.
That's the finished work. And you're gonna take us through one of these images as you edit it. I don't know which one.
Sure. Yeah, I was actually going to edit that one. So that's
cool.
original file. So that's essentially a JPEG version of the raw, and I've just added the text. So what's that? An aperture of 5.6, 19 mil, ISO 250, the 10 stop, and the CPL. And with the CPL, you just rotate it to make sure that you get, you either reduce or add the glare that you want, whatever you're looking for.
How far are you moving the car in those 6 seconds?
Not very far. In fact, this one, the owner, Ben, he was behind the wheel, seatbelt on, looking straight ahead, not moving. And I was on the back corner, crouched down, just slowly pushing the car. So again, less than walking pace.
So 1 wheel rotation, 2 wheel rotations. I mean, I would imagine you'd want
probably 1 or 2. Yeah,
okay,
probably
you'd
1
want
or
a
2.
full
Yeah,
rotation.
yeah.
So it doesn't blur, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it does blur. Otherwise,
So
you
it
get
does blur.
a blur and a stop.
Yeah, no, well, it's we don't stop. So the camera's set up with a remote trigger, so I can just keep on triggering. So I might take half a dozen shots as we push the car in one pass. And
Right.
then depending on shadows or where the light falls on it, I might use that one, or that one's a little bit blurry, I won't use that one. So I'll take multiple photos each time, but it is just one photo that I edit to produce that. So,
Oh, I just noticed in this shadow. Let me go back to that. In this shadow, you can see that little angular support that you have there
correct.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the gimbal and the camera. And that's the 17 mil on the Canon. And then that extra arm, again, just with little clamps, just helps hold it nice and solid. Because there's a fair bit of weight there, whether it's the little Olympus or
Right.
the big 5D Mark III.
Right. Having played with, the Olympus and your bigger cameras, like, do you have a preference? Which one you
Oh,
like? Have
for
you?
this, I'm really enjoying the Olympus, and I'll be using it exclusively for this. I've sort of all the gear I'm sort of buying now is for the Olympus to do car stuff like that, and then I'm enjoying using the Olympus in general anyway. I've been doing some, a little bit of street photography here and there, and just learning how that camera works.
Right.
Fairly comfortable with the Canon. I just got to learn the Olympus now.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. So you got to. It's the menus, right? The camera's a
It's the
camera.
menu, yeah.
You just got to learn the
Correct,
menu.
correct.
Yeah.
How do I do what I need to do with this camera?
I know. So Nick is asking, do you spend any time having to balance the camera on the gimbal to eliminate any of the rotation or camera shake? Because you're going to want that when you have that gimbal hanging. Do
Mm-hmm.
you have a slide mount so that the camera doesn't fall forward or fall backwards, or do you just put it where you want and lock it down?
I lock it in, yes. So basically the camera goes in and I'll adjust the position where I want it. And then I can just turn that knob there and
Right.
that just tightens it up. And
Got
then
it.
depending on the orientation that way, I can just loosen the knob, turn it, and then lock it in place. So I can position the camera,
Okay.
whatever angle, wherever the boom happens to be. But this stays nice and firm and nice and still.
Okay. Yeah. So you're not actually letting it like self-balance, like
No,
self-stabilize.
no, no. It's fairly, it's probably, if anything, it's leaning a little bit to the back, but then I can adjust it and lock it in place, and it's more than enough for the camera.
Right. Right. Well, you're not going down a dirt road or.
No, no, no. Correct. Yeah, it's not going to be bouncing. No,
Frederick is asking if you want to combine, if you want to merge this with your automotive photography and your underwater models somehow.
Well, I did use a model in one shot. I did a composite, which I'm sure Renee Robin would pick to death. But I did take a photo, and I did a static image before we pushed the car with the model doing various poses, sort of leaning out the car and stuff. And then we did a rolling shot, and then I popped her in afterwards. And for my level of composite work, it was okay.
It looked good.
Nothing that Robin would admit to.
Yeah, compositing is tough. It is
Very, very tough.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump into seeing you do some of your editing magic with this
Okay.
Red Mini.
So I've got to share my screen.
You've got to share your screen.
All
Yeah.
right, let me figure out that, and I'm going to go that one. So can you see the Mini?
You know what? I'm assuming everybody else can. My screen is.
Oh, okay. Share. Here we go. That should come up as screen 2. I don't know if you can see that now.
Can I? Can you guys see that? I've got a. Oh, there it is. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect.
So that's I don't know if you can see that, but that's all the files that I was going to play with in Lightroom. That's where sort of things start for me. And then I'm going to open it up, this particular one, in Photoshop. And then it's just a case of we're removing stuff. So for me, I tend to remove distractions. Obviously, the pole, the shadow, they just get cloned out. Content Aware is a powerful tool now, and that does a really good job. And I'll mess it up now. But
so now, when you're photographing, when you're setting this up, are you looking at the background and asking yourself, like, okay, that's not going to be easy to clone out. When I got to remove the pole, that's a busy background. That's going to be harder for me. So
it can be. Probably the main thing you want to look out for, keep in mind, is where you're actually mounting the boom. Like if you see right here on the edge of the roof, if I was over a little bit more to the towards the door, becomes a very hard area to clone and recreate and rebuild when you start to remove the black suction cup and the post and the pole itself.
Oh, right. And that reflection from
And
the
then the
pole.
reflection, and then you've got the reflection down the bezel of the headlight. You've got a little bit of the reflection at the bottom of the bumper. And then obviously you've got the shadow on the road, which is relatively straightforward to remove. But you've all got these little things to try and keep in mind. And where is that reflection? Where is that shadow? And I probably didn't do a good enough job here in setting it up, but it was reasonably straightforward to remove. But the big one is where it's mounting, where it's sticking out over the car.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep in mind, can I rebuild that easily? Is a section of the roof that I can sort of drag across to replace what I'm removing? So little
Sure.
things like that help in post.
Have you tried shooting a plate of the car first before you put all the gear on it? I mean, I know you can't get exactly where you want to be, but you can get pretty close. Would that
I
not help you?
haven't. Yeah, I probably need to consider that next time. I don't. I will do. I will take practice shots with the settings before we start to move the car to
Got it.
make sure that everything's roughly where I want it and everything looks good and the settings are good before we start pushing. So I have got some static sections to play with, but I've never, not without the pole. I've always just, you just have to correct it in post where possible in
Yeah.
Photoshop.
Yeah. I've just, at weddings, and it seems silly at some weddings, but there's certain areas that I go to shoot in that I know I'm going to do like a veil drop or something
Sure.
like that. They're going to run. And I always run out there and say, okay, here's where I'm going to want them. And I go click, click, click. And then I bring them out. And that's just been with the experience of having to do composites and fix backgrounds or take things out, a tree or a cover on the ground. I've just started to shoot more plates.
Yeah.
And basically for those listening, a plate is just literally the background before your scene goes in it. So it's really easy to just add that. So
I've got some folders of, I know we've got our sky thing that we always joke about. I've got a section of a folder with grass that I use for both architecture and occasionally a real estate client. So I'll find a nice park and I'll just photograph at different heights, and even with the drone as well. I've taken some shots with the drones at, facing north, facing south, all that sort of stuff. And so if I need to drop in some grass, I can sort of mask in.
Maybe we need a grass folder. We have a clouds folder.
Yeah, we need to get Luminar onto that. They need to sort out more than just skies.
I have a buddy that does some amazing artistic composite work, and we were sharing some assets, and he sent me a folder. I kid you not, 300-ish images of eyelashes.
Wow.
Eyelashes.
Okay.
From little tiny strokes to actual eyelashes he photographed to brushes with eyelashes. Like, he's obsessed with eyelashes. So, all right, we'll stop talking about eyelashes, and you can
That's
show
all right.
how you do your magic.
All right, so that's just the brunt of the pole just removed there. So that was just
a content aware.
Just a content aware fill.
Yep. Select it, hit delete, content aware fill.
Correct. And the blur is not too bad. And now we would just have to spend time. I'll zoom in. We just have to spend a bit of time removing the suction mount. Maybe we'll copy a little bit of the roof and just drag it across and just blend it in. But with enough blurriness in the background, it's relatively easy to remove the content.
Now, in hindsight, with an image like this, would you have preferred that suction cup a little bit more to camera right, so it wasn't right above that pillar?
Correct, and that's what I should have moved it across a little bit more.
Okay, I just want to.
That's one of those things I teach myself afterwards.
Yeah, I'm just trying to point out any mistakes that you made. That's
thank you.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Look, I found so many mistakes after the fact. After I sent you these files, and let me redo it. Let me redo it. Let me redo it.
Yeah. No. It's a constant learning process. Always. Doesn't matter how long you've been photographing. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing a thing. There's always something to learn.
Correct.
So, and it's funny, and this is just a cultural thing. I was convinced there was not a guy in that car, because where do you think I was looking?
Oh, of course, yeah,
on the wrong
right.
side of the car, on the other side.
Yeah, well,
right?
The owner is right there.
I see him now. Yeah, now that you zoomed in.
And that's the right here. That's the little head-up display screen on this particular model for his speedo and maps.
Okay.
So I'll often remove. So I'm just going to go through and just sort of remove some specular highlights, stuff that's a little bit distracting, just with the content aware tool. It works really well.
It's crazy good. It's crazy good. And I've learned too that, like with Affinity Photo, if there's textures, like if I have a grassy texture or a sand, Photoshop doesn't do a great job with it. It tends to add more grain and noise behind it. Then I'll go to Affinity. but these content aware fill tools are just incredibly good. So, and Frederick is asking if I shoot my plates on a tripod. I never use a tripod unless I'm doing a very long exposure, like
Okay.
landscapey stuff or outdoor stuff. I really do not like gear. So no, it's usually handheld. All right. Very cool. Very cool. So this is, oh, I see. You're just going to grab it. Yeah. So what gear do you wish you had on these shoots? Is there anything else? Like, what else do you wish that you had on your shoots with you?
I don't really think I need much more. I mean, the main thing is the camera to be able to obviously get the shot. I'm happy with the boom, happy with the lens. Typically it's a wide angle lens, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the sharpest and the fastest one, because I'm not going to shoot at f2.8 or whatever, because I do want to get, the car at least mostly in focus, the whole car. I'm not sure. It's probably the next thing for me is just improve on my editing, get better there.
Have you done any artificial lighting on this kind of stuff? I mean, you're
not with the moving cars, because I don't have, normally it's me and maybe the owner, or I've done a couple of shoots just on my own where I've had the car. The next, I have thought about adding some lights to it, but then it starts to become a big process, and you've got, lots of people hanging around, and trying to direct a bunch of people is a headache. I'd rather just do it myself.
I mean, I can just imagine, you could make a night shot out of something like this, right? Where, the car's moving and you can underexpose the background, and or you do it at night, and then you throw some front light, like there's a car coming from the other direction, or you light up the interior.
I did one shoot with a Tesla. We did it in the evening, and it was like in a tunnel, like near the Queensland Museum. There's a big tunnel section, so you've got some streaking lights and things like that. And the car did have his headlights on, or at least the low beam lights and the fog lights on, and I was happy with those results. So yeah, definitely at night you can get some really cool results, because now you've got the concrete's a little bit soft, a little bit blurry, but you've got these streakiness of these bright highlights of the lights as they sort of laser across the car.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, car parks are a good place to do it. Undercover car parks, typically it's nice smooth concrete. You've got a little bit of space, and you can get some nice effects with lights.
Yeah, I love the idea that it doesn't take a lot of space to do that. The only thing is you can't do like a good burnout, right? Like you got to be able to do a burnout and have the car. Now you really got to work on that.
Okay, well, see, that's where you do it the way Mark Brooks does, all in post, and he can add his smoke. Yeah. Okay, yes. But if you look, one thing that, Mark does amazing work. I can't do what he does, but if you look here at the Mini's front wheel, and I'll just move that there to the middle, you can actually read the brake caliper, and so you can see that says works on the caliper. You couldn't do that if it was a static shot that you replicated to make look like it was moving. Oh,
right. Yeah, because if you try to blur the wheel,
the whole thing blurs. Whereas the brake caliper is staying still. So but you just have to pick your angle. But I was very happy with that particular angle, because I could actually get the caliper nice and sharp.
Now I'm going to look at all the
It's a quick telltale giveaway.
How real they are, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a giveaway.
Yeah. So what else would we do to that car? So you have the ground.
So yeah, I'd clean it up properly. Going through and removing, like there's some little bugs on the number plate, so we can, where's the content aware brush there? Again, I'm just removing stuff, little distractions.
Right.
Not that much. And just cleaning up the car, where there's a little bit of water, there was a little bit of the shadow across, or reflection across the bonnet here, or what do you guys call it? The
hood.
The hood, thank you. Yeah. So I actually did remove that little bit of reflection. Just go around and clean it up. And then in Lightroom, I've enhanced the colors and cropped it a little bit, and just played with it as you should.
We've got to do this with Peter's car when
for sure.
Out. Yeah, but Peter's car is convertible. How do you do that on a convertible? Where are you going to put the?
You would you could possibly go one off the front windscreen, and then we might just have to have a really long post up to the for the back of the pole.
That
I
would
have
be,
a few different options in my little box of tricks. So I've got various lengths of carbon fiber with ends that I can, make things longer, shorter, whatever I need to do to get different angles.
I know that you use a lot of, you've got those LED lights that you like to use for your underwater.
Yeah,
And I'll go ahead and, let's see. I want to stop the
giving away all my secrets,
share.
i.e. what's cheap on Amazon.
Yeah, hang on. There we go. Stop. There we go. I'll stop the screen share real quick.
Oh, please. Thank you. Yep.
Yep, that's done. So you're not just doing the cars though. You do a lot of other photography. How do you, is the car your focus? I know you do some architecture. We talked about your architecture. Where do you think you've learned the most about your lighting? Is that from the architectural stuff or from the cars? Like, I know we learn something from everything, but where's the
I'm
challenge?
probably learning it from all my mistakes and trying not to do it again. But becoming more aware of the light, where the light's facing. I actually did a wedding I was a second shooter helping a friend with a wedding, and he kept looking at his hand and moving his hand and looking at where the light was. And I sort
Yeah.
of asked him, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, "I'm looking at where the light is." And I started realizing that I can look for shadows right here and figure out the angles, and so it's one of those evolving learning things. You pick up little things from people and try and use it where you can.
Yeah, I
And for
do.
this, I just wanted the light on that particular side of the car. It really lit it up nicely, and it was a smooth road. So it's finding the right road and finding the light. And this was late afternoon, so it wasn't glaring. It wasn't. We have very strong light here in Australia. This was as soft as you could sort of hope for on a summer day.
So you're going out and you're scouting these locations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Any
most of this stuff, I'll spend a little bit of time looking for an area, like the one for the Mini. I'd spent the 911, that blue one at the beginning. I'd planned that shoot. Took a few months to finally line things up with the owner from when we initially talked to setting a date. And I kept driving around looking at car parks and areas. I found that arrow. I knew I wanted to make use of that arrow. There was other buildings with backgrounds that I wanted to use for some of the photos. And then we did some traditional rolling shots where I had somebody driving my car and I was able to sort of hang out the window and follow it and track the 911 as it was driving along. And again, drag the shutter a little bit so the car's sharp, but you get that sense of motion. So more the traditional way that we would do it, but on a public road going across a bridge and getting
right.
some of the architecture of the bridge and what have you, and going around corners.
Yeah, I would
So
imagine having the structures around you are going to make a big difference in the sense of motion that you're having if they're building
correct.
close to you or far from you.
Yeah.
So you're very intentional about finding your locations. Do you use any apps to help you find out where the light is or what time to be there for the sunrise or the sunset?
Yeah, there's for the astrophotography one. That's which is a separate subject altogether. There's polar pills. No,
Photo pills.
photo pills. Thank you, photo
Okay.
pills.
Yep.
But
Yep.
for normal stuff, there's one called Light Track that I use.
Okay.
LIGHTTRAC, and it's a little bit more dumbed down. I can plug in a location and I can figure out where the sun's going to be and the angles and things like that.
Right.
So that's good for initially finding an area and what's the best time to work. Do I need to do it in the morning or the afternoon? For this one, I knew the area. I just had to find a smooth road, and if the light was the other way, if it was in the morning, I would have just had the car facing the other way.
Oh yeah.
And just work with it that way. But yeah, lucked out on this one. I didn't probably spend as long looking for a location for the mini shoot as I did with the 911 or even with the Tesla that I did as well. And then it's just making it up as you go along for some shoots,
So
depending on the location.
So what cars haven't you shot that you want to shoot? Do you have like a wish list? Like these are the cars that I need to collect these cars.
Yeah, I think there's another couple of Porsches that I think I've got access to that the owner has said he will organize a day and I can shoot them again. So I did one of his older green Porsches, an air-cooled model, and it didn't come out as good as I would have liked, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get the Olympus. So I'll redo that one, and then he's got a newer GT3 RS, I think in green also. So I'd like to do both of those, and then possibly I think next month I might get access to a Ferrari. So I might be playing with a Ferrari for a day, or at least half a
yeah.
day.
No, have you photographed any Priuses? Because I know Peter's got, a nice, beautiful Prius that he's very proud of. And
Well, the closest with the Tesla, and
no,
the
no,
nice,
wait. No, no. No. Prius?
no, no. No, unfortunately,
I'm just
Priuses
thinking,
quite often are used as taxis here in Brisbane,
yeah,
and they're not the cleanest. So I'll give that one a miss. But at least with the
I just
Tesla, we
didn't.
could actually move it without having to worry about the vibration of the engine.
This is
So
true.
yeah,
This is
so
true.
that worked out very, very well.
Now, have you done any trucks? Any big trucks? Because I'm thinking,
No.
my truck. There's no way you're going to push that if it's even slightly uphill. I mean, it weighs 8,000 pounds.
Well, then we
So
find a slight incline, and you can just roll it. That's the other thing I do for like some of the roads if they're too flat and I can't push it, or I even have a little rope that I can clip onto like a tow hook, and I'll get somebody to pull it, or I'll pull on the rope. Normally, I quite often look for a slight little decline, and
I'm
then we can
reading.
just let the car roll down the hill, and I'll just take a bunch of photos.
I'm reading the comments. Joshua says Tesla is to Prius as Batmobile is to
Oh,
tricycle. See, this is why when you're doing an interview, you got to be careful what you read in the
yeah,
chats because it's
fair
very
enough.
distracting.
I didn't say it was exactly the same. I said the closest I've come to a Prius.
Oh my gosh. So Frederick is asking, what would you say is your photographic genre? Do you have a genre, or do you prefer not to be pigeonholed?
Yeah, I don't think I'm good enough yet at anything to be pigeonholed. So I like to do the car stuff. I like to do the underwater model stuff, the portraiture there. I don't think I'm at a level yet where I could say that I'm the guy to go to for any of that. It's still a learning opportunity for me. I'm still learning, still trying to create something.
Years? How long have you been
Uh,
shooting?
uh, 20 odd years. But the last, I went sort of full-time photography just over 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you've made it past that 3 to 5 year mark. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
always, yeah. Once you've made it past that, you've made enough mistakes, and you've made those mistakes
Oh,
more than one time. And
correct.
that's really the thing, right? Like somebody says, "Hey, I've been doing this for 3 years," and I'm like, "Great, you've made all the mistakes maybe once. You've
Yeah.
got to make them a couple times,
Yeah.
But that's cool. That's very cool. So, are you doing photography full time now?
Yeah. So for me, photography is a full-time business. And then I fit in stuff like the car stuff, the underwater models, any other things that I do on the side, or occasionally they're a paying thing. So I've had some models that have seen my work and have booked me and paid me to shoot them underwater, which is always good fun. You get a client that one likes your work but is willing to give you money. That really helps.
Yeah, I was going to, since you brought that up, I think it would be great to kind of show
Mm,
that. So I was going to jump
sure.
over here just to show the diversity, and I think it's really important for us as artists and photographers to have a variety of work. As a lot of my friends know, as you guys know, I like fire a lot, but fire and weddings and brides don't go together. But that's my creative outlet. So a lot of the same principles apply here, though, right? You're getting motion, you're using
Mhm.
lighting, you've got color, you've got shapes.
That
Very
one in
cool.
the red dress, that was in Noosa, as was that black and white. Two different models.
And that's actually in the ocean, yes?
Yeah, so a little rock pool, or quite a big rock pool, up in the Sunshine Coast, up in Noosa.
Right.
So it's about 6 foot deep and probably about 25, 30 feet long and about 10 foot wide.
Yeah, but you're still in the ocean, so
Yep. Yeah, so is that one there with all the bubbles. A wave crashed over the top
yeah.
of us.
Oh my gosh, these are very cool. These are very cool. Yeah, I love it. Very nice. Everybody can go check out your website. They
Yeah.
should go do that. They should go do that anyway. So, anybody have any questions you guys want to throw in here? Now's a really good time for that. Frederick asked if these are new glasses. These are not new glasses, but I don't cycle them out very much. I use them when I'm welding, because I was out welding today. And for those of you that didn't see, I was making masks. You know, that's what I was doing today. And so what's your next project, Craig? What's coming up next for you?
Next for me, probably a little bit more testing, getting the Olympus dialed in for doing some car stuff. Quite often I'll
Which
find a
Olympus was
road.
that?
I'm sorry?
Which Olympus was that?
It's the OMD EM5 Mark II. And I'm using the little wide angle lens is a 9 to 18 mil. So I can't see myself on the screen at the moment.
Oh yeah, you know why? Because I have spotlighted the video on me. There you go.
Oh, there you go. I still can't see me. Doesn't matter. But I'll presume it's roughly that way. And so that's the little camera. This is the filter holder, and then I can spin that, and I get that turns a CPL. Oh, there we are. So I can rotate the CPL on the side, and then I can fit neutral density filters on the front once I get the effect I want. So handy little thing. And then a remote trigger on the side, just plugged in to trigger the camera. Can I see it? Where are we? There we are.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So what kind of lighting triggers are you using?
I'm trying to find the product. It's JJC, just whatever I could find for Olympus.
Oh, okay. So like
just nothing special, just a little remote wireless one. I do have, what do I have? Something else for the Canon, and I also have a couple of the traditional Canon cable releases as well.
Got it.
Ones. I always have one of those in the bag just in case.
Got it. Got it.
So backups for most things.
Project is asking, why photography and not other mediums?
Oh, because I'm rubbish at everything else. So for me with photography, it was just as very much a hobby, for many, many years. And I used to travel a little bit for work. So quite often I'd be traveling on my own. And as we sort of got into, the ability to get digital cameras, I would have the other one that we'd have at home. So we always had the good one at home, and then the old one I'd keep in my bag. And so while I was traveling, I'd be able to take some photos, at least send them back to my wife and kids, and have a bit of a reminder of where I have been. And then it just sort of evolved from there. And then quite often, if I'm sitting on an oil rig, I'd have a bit of time to start to edit photos and play with photos. And that's how I used to spend my downtime. And then it just sort of grew from there. And quite often you've got to, you start flicking through camera magazines, and you see all the lenses and the gear that's available to you. And you start thinking, I could use that lens, and that one. And next thing you know, you've got a couple of different lenses that do different things, and you've got to figure out how to use them and where they work. And that's what's grown for me.
Yeah, the more gear you have, the more gear you need to acquire.
Exactly.
Because you realize there's gaps, right?
Correct. So I've got 19 to 18, but I need 17 to 22, and then I need that. Yeah.
At 1.4, I need that 1.4 or 1.2.
Absolutely.
Oh, that would be the best if I could have that.
For sure.
For a lot of my wedding stuff, I have started to really take advantage of the technology, and I'm curious if this has been the case for you over the years that you've been shooting. Is I'm starting to go to more f4 glass, like my 70 to 200s, my 24 to 70s, because the size between an f4 lens and a 2.8 lens is significant, right?
Yeah, very much so.
2 to 3 times the physical weight.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing a need for that unless it's a specialty piece of glass.
Of course. With the Canon stuff, I do have a few 2.8 lenses, and they do get used for like a wedding or an event, and you feel it at the end of the day, particularly a big 70 to 200. I haven't replaced it with the f4 version. If I had a 5D Mark IV, or maybe one of the newer R cameras that the Canon's coming out with better ISO capability, I could probably get away with that. I find 3200 ISO is probably the max I can get away with the Mark III. And, in a dimly lit venue or something like that, sometimes I'm struggling with f4. And I find that the f2, I can get away with it. Again, there's no image stabilization in the camera, and not all of the lenses have IS. So for me, at least with the Canon, I'm still happy with the 2.8 stuff. But then I look at that little Olympus, and it is brilliant. Really, really is. Like some of those wave shots that I shared with a week or two ago on TWIP, I actually shot that with the Olympus, and I was actually able to do it with one hand because I might have mentioned I hurt my shoulder, and I
Yeah,
physically
you
couldn't.
mentioned it. You sent us the horrifying pictures of your
It's
dislocated collarbone or
slightly out, slightly out. But
slightly.
I found out after a couple of minutes it actually hurt too much. So I was actually able to pan and take those photos just one-handed with a equivalent of 300mm lens.
Did you hear any of the rumors that Canon is coming out with some new glass
Yeah.
and a 600 and 800 millimeter f11?
Jeez.
F11. What I mean,
Ooh,
and the best part is they have a teleconverter, a 1.4 and a 2 that you can slap onto that bad boy. So
okay.
I'm just wondering, being a Canon shooter that you are,
Yeah.
I will never have the privilege of using such glass. Like, do you have anything that you would shoot with that?
Motorsport. So I've been fortunate that Canon here in Brisbane every year or so they'll do a Canon day down at one of the local racetracks,
Yep.
and you spend the morning playing with all of their, all those massive big wide zoom lenses, 600mm and the 400mm, and
Yeah.
that 100 to 400, sorry, 100 to 400 with a 1.4 teleconverter built in.
Yeah.
That is a magic bit of glass. To be
Yeah.
able to just flick a lever and next thing it's 40% closer is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. The new one is like one something to 500. I don't remember the list,
Jeez.
but I just got really hung up on the 6 to 800 millimeter f11 because I'm thinking,
That's insane.
yeah, well, is the sun coming out? Nope, it's a little overcast today. Can't use that piece of glass.
Yeah, well, that's F11. That's okay. That's a weird one. I mean, I could set it up as a webcam and I could point it at you and live stream you while I'm here in Brisbane.
Just about.
Just about. Far out.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? We are coming up on our hour, and that's been amazing, Craig. I love
Thank
it.
you.
We've got a couple questions might be coming in here at the last minute, if that's going to happen. Otherwise,
Please.
so we got Nick. Do you find the Olympus harder to hold still than the Canons, with it being so light?
No, I'm finding it easy to hold. The one thing I did do was I bought one of those little camera grips. Just remove the filter.
So it's quite ergonomic. I know that's the
It's a little bit more,
the
little bit.
mirrorless.
So that's got a little grip here that sort of makes it a little bit bigger. I've got, I'm quite tall, so I've got a bigger than normal hands, and it's very comfortable. I'm having no problems at all, no complaints at all with holding it still. And I've just adjust, you can fully customize what the buttons and dials do, and I think I've just about got it dialed in how I want to shoot.
Sure.
Where the aperture is and where the exposure compensation and what have you.
Yeah.
The focus peaking is nice to have.
Time with the gear. You got to spend time with the gear. Yep. You just got to spend time with it so it gets out of your way. That's one of the biggest things that anybody can do. Even if you're a pro, read your manual and spend time with your gear. You have to learn that stuff so it gets out of your way. So, like Peter calls me when he can't figure out how to change something. He could.
But you keep answering, If you just just don't answer.
I have to.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to, but I like.
You don't have to.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So, all right, my friend. Thank you for hanging out with us. That's awesome. Tell everybody where they can find more about Craig Stampfli if they want to stalk you.
Okay. So for the majority of the car stuff, that will be on Instagram at craig.stampfli. The underwater model-y stuff, that's at Stampfli, at stampfli.photography on Instagram. And then my usual sort of Facebook page, which I really don't do a lot with, is just, I think, Facebook/stampfli.photography, I think.
Well, I'll make sure that all the pertinent info that you sent me in the bio will be there.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously, I think you showed the website before, and that's just stampfli.photography.
Yep.
And that's got I think that's got links to most things and shows a little bit more of the portraiture and headshots and underwater stuff. The car stuff, which is the fun stuff, that's mainly on Instagram.
Yeah, and of course on Twit Pro.
On Twit Pro,
a lot of us hang out. We've got a lot of people here from the Twit Pro community, which is really nice. That's twitpro.com. That's Frederick Van Johnson forum from This Week in Photo, and it's a really great community. So that's actually how you and I met. That's
correct.
Mark Tourette, Peter, who's a local friend of mine, met you guys through there when he on his vacation back to Australia, which is his homeland, right? He got to visit with you guys, so that's been very cool. It's been very fun to be able to meet everybody there and have that.
And I think, as you're saying, you know, we've all sort of got to know each other virtually. Actually going down and specifically meeting Mark and Peter in person, it didn't seem strange at all, because you know what each other sounds like, you know what what you'll look like, and now you just physically, you're not actually on the end of a screen, you're physically right there, and you know,
you just walk around
I'll
with a
pay for this round of, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you did pay for dinner, I think. Peter did, or did I? I might have paid for dinner.
Well, you did break his camera, so that's a
yeah.
inside joke.
That's how I dislocated my shoulder.
You're going to have to come to the Twit Pro member mixers on Fridays to hear a little bit more about that. So
yes, I'm still getting accused for that. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. All right, my friend. Thank you everybody for being here. Just so that you guys know, and you'll be the first ones to know, we've talked about F64 Live, and I'm the founder and the creator of F64 Live. It is going to be postponed this year. We were going to do it in September 12 and 13. It's just not going to be possible. Even Craig and I were talking before this, like his borders are going to be closed. He's not going to be able to fly out. So we are going to have some pretty cool stuff happening though, somewhere near the end of the year. Frederick's got some nice virtual desserts in the works. We'll talk about that. I'll let him make those announcements, but I will keep everybody up to date. So you can check out the f64live.com website. I'm going to have some info up there very shortly as we kind of work out all these details. So, you know, life is still a little bit crazy and we're trying to make the best of it that we can. So we will definitely be getting together sometime soon. So, all right. Take care, everybody.